What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Tracy Developer Meetup. So this is our May 2021 edition, and we have repeat guest Ray Camden back to show us some awesome stuff. But before we get into the material that we're going to be doing tonight, I want to go over some logistical stuff. So we are live. We're streaming live to YouTube right now. Ask us questions, engage with us in the chat. If you have a question, I am actively monitoring. I will stop Ray, so that way you can get your question answered. If there's any kind of audio or video hiccups, let me know too. I want to clear that up so that way we don't go too long with any kind of issues. Ray, do you want to give your introduction spiel?
Yeah, and I just want to know like how you plan on stopping me, because like
how you. Oh, I have a really annoying bell I can get. Let me. So I can bother you with this thing. I can just start ringing it.
I may need that actually. And I also like how did I agree to a Friday night presentation? Like what conversation?
I book it so far in advance that you don't realize the day because it's like 8 months in advance. You're like, all right, I'm probably free.
Yeah,
and you realize it's like a Saturday. Yeah.
Cool. Should I do my dog and pony dance? Start sharing screen and all that?
Should I share it?
Let's do it. Let's rock and roll, man. It's Friday, 9 o'clock my time. So I want to give an amazing presentation, and then I will get out of here. Cool. Are you seeing my slide deck?
Yeah, we are. What's up, Mark Takata? Glad you're here.
All right. So welcome to Working with Pipedream. I apologize. Like normally at this time, my brain is turned off, so I'm like slowly like rebooting it back on. Nick, thank you for allowing me to speak, even though it's Friday evening. I definitely appreciate it. I am, and I wasn't when we agreed to this, but I am a evangelist for Adobe. I've been here about 2 months or so now. I work on the document services team, so we have APIs for working with PDFs, doing things like merging and manipulating PDFs and document generation. A lot of really cool stuff, as well as a really cool PDF embed API as well, none of which I'm talking about tonight. If I have enough time, I actually have one small demo I will show at the end that actually makes use of our APIs. But if you have any questions about what I'm showing today, if you have any questions about cats or about Just Dance, you can absolutely reach out to me. I have a blog at raymondcamden.com, and I'm tweeting at Raymond Camden. And you should absolutely follow me because I'm very serious on Twitter. I only tweet important technical matters. So following me would be really, really good for your career. All right, so let's get started. What is Pipedream? I like to do something where when I cover a product or a service, whatever, I like to take their marketing material and show it and kind of comment on how accurate it is. And that's not to say companies ever lie, but sometimes marketing can be a bit fanciful. At the Pipedream website, what they say is stop writing boilerplate code, struggling with authentication and managing infrastructure, start connecting APIs of code level control when you need it, and no code when you don't. And actually, I really, really like this. My only complaint about this is that it doesn't really give you the idea of how much it's going to help you. And I'm going to laser focus on that, struggling with authentication. A few months ago, I was doing something with a Google API, and I think I spent like 5 hours total working on a demo. It was some dumb thing I had, some dumb idea I had. I have a lot of really dumb ideas. But of that 5 hours, I swear, 4 of that was just trying to get their darn authentication to work. Once I got past that, then it was like an hour of actually working with their API. Pipedream, what they do to make that part easy is incredibly nice, and I really appreciate it. And I hope that in this presentation tonight, I can really convey how nice it is that Pipedream is taking those nasty parts out and making it simpler for you. So to give you like more of a concrete idea of what I'm talking about, so I have this idea, and it's really, really big. Like it's going to be easily $1 million idea. All right. So my idea is that I'm going to make a new Twitter account, and every hour I'm going to tweet a random picture of a cat. Now I'm not sure how I'm going to make money from that. Maybe I'll be an influencer, but it's going to make me rich. I'm sure somehow. So the way that I would implement this, I would set up a Node.js environment in production. Now, really, nowadays, that's not too hard at all. You can find multiple platform as a service type solutions that make it easy to run a Node.js application. I'll go to the Twitter developer portal. I'll make an application there so I can get my credentials. I will get their particular SDK, and then I'll set up the credentials they gave me. And at that point, I'm ready to do some actual business logic. So I will find a random cat picture. I'll write that particular code, and then I have to tweet that. And what you may not know is that for Twitter, if you want to do a tweet with a picture, it's a two-part process. So first, I will upload the picture to Twitter, and that gives me like a media ID back. And then I will create a tweet and associate it with that picture. And then the last thing I will do is I'll set up the schedule, and I'll do that by Googling what is cron, because I can never remember that syntax. And when I get the syntax, I'll do it wrong, and it'll run like every second, and my Twitter app will get banned probably. Then I'll fix it. I'll get unbanned, but I'll be done. So that's how I would implement this in the old days. With Pipedream, some fun things happen. So we get rid of the environment. Now, to be fair, any serverless environment kind of makes that go away. I don't have to worry about making a Twitter app anymore because they handle that aspect for me. I don't need the Twitter SDK because they can do that for me. I do need to find my random cat picture. I don't need to worry about writing code to upload the picture because they have that handled, nor do I have to worry about writing code to create a tweet because Pipedream has that handled, nor do I have to worry about setting up a cron schedule. So if you're not getting the idea here, is that Pipedream is doing a heck of a lot of work for me, and just allowing me to be successful. And because of this, I blame Pipedream because Pipedream, I have a problem. I have many problems, but one of the problems I have is that I like to make Twitter bots, and Pipedream has enabled me. So I have one called Random Comic Book, which uses the Marvel API and just posts, random comic book covers from the history of Marvel, and it does it every hour or so. Oops. I built that. I built a random Taylor Swift bot because I discovered there was a Taylor Swift API. So I figured, why not build a bot for that? The National Park System of America also has a very nice API. So I built a bot that finds a random park and just shares a picture of that park along with the park name and the link. I built a picture of a bot that does a random picture of the moon because I like the moon. So I figured, why not? I also like G.I. Joe because I'm 48, turning 12, I guess. So I built a bot that picks a random G.I. Joe character and just prints it out. I also built another bot called Generator Queen, which uses a random text generation library, actually a really complex one, such that you can tweet at it and it will tell you what you are the queen of. And then my favorite is Super Joy Cat, which just every hour or so prints out a nice happy message, a nice happy cat picture. You complete me. And, after my food bowl, you're the first thing I want to see in the morning. This, there's a lot of negative stuff on the internet. So I built Super Joy Cat to give me some joy. But yeah, again, I blame Pipedream for making this easy. After the first or second bot I built, it got to a point where, I think the Taylor Swift bot was last, and it was approximately 15 minutes, of which 5 minutes was me creating the account and 10 minutes was working on Pipedream. So let's talk about some Pipedream basics, some kind of high-level terms of how it operates. You have workflows, and the workflows is essentially the applications that you're building on their platform. These workflows will combine pre-built applications. So for example, do a tweet along with custom code that you write. And there is a huge amount of pre-built code. I'm going to kind of show you some examples of that and show you their library. They have a web-based editor. You can do some stuff locally. I'll talk a bit more about that. You cannot do the entire thing local yet. I know that's on the radar, but I will say their web-based editor works really darn well. I am looking forward to a complete offline experience just so that I can use GitHub more, but in general, I've had no issues at all with their editor. You can also share and fork workflows, which is really cool because Pipedream, the company, they built a lot of example workflows that you could actually look at, see how they built that particular workflow, and literally just copy it to your own account and start using it or start modifying. It makes it really easy to play. And I added this last bullet point about 5 hours ago because I realized I never actually included a link to the site. And nowadays you can't really know if it's going to be .io or .net, but it is pipedream.com. If you are interested in pricing, as of May 2021, that's when we're doing this recording, you could take a look-see, and it's loading. And you can see they have 3 tiers, basically the free, the, pay a set amount, or, let's talk about what you're going to pay. I do think their free tier is incredibly well done, 10,000 invocations. The only thing I will point out is that sometimes it's possible to build workflows that run a lot. So you do want to be careful, and I will show you how you can check that and kind of monitor what you're doing. But you can absolutely use Pipedream a lot while you're learning and actually build real things on the free tier. Yes.
On the free tier, if you exceed the 10,000, does it cut you off, or does it start charging a credit card? Or have you not been to that point?
So I'm pretty sure it's a soft limit where you'll be warned. You do not have to supply a credit card, so you won't get a surprise bill. You only supply a credit card when you go up to the higher level. I have hit the limits, and it's been like a soft break. So it's definitely safe to use. You won't have to worry about that Amazon issue where you do the wrong thing and you get a big bill.
Sure.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to show you how you can check, and I'm going to show you the kinds of things that like may accidentally go high, and what to watch out for. Make sense?
Got it. Makes perfect sense.
Dude, I was waiting for that bell, man. You got to use the bell. There you go. All right. So again, that's this could be recorded for you later. Pricing may change, but that's what it is. May 2021. If you're watching this in 5 years, I hope to God COVID is gone. All right. So let's talk about workflows. And again, this is the core thing that you're building on Pipedream. First part of a workflow is a trigger, and essentially how it starts. We can also call these event sources. After that, you have the steps, the actual thing that's going to be happening in your workflow. And this consists of 2 things, actions and code. And actions are just a way of saying the Pipedream stuff that they have built for you already. So for example, they have a send a tweet. That's an action. It's done. You don't have to worry about that code. But you can also write Node.js steps to do data manipulation. A common thing is I will use a Pipedream built-in action to get some data from Google, for example. I'll write some code to take that data and transform it, and then I'll give it to another pre-built action that does something with that data. So, I essentially end up writing glue code, and Pipedream is doing all the heavy lifting. Now, talk a bit more about triggers. You can make an HTTP-based trigger, which is essentially a serverless endpoint. So you get a URL, and if you hit that URL, it runs the trigger. You can also do a cron-based one. And what's nice is that they support the complete complex cron syntax. They also, thank God, have a simple, give me every hour, every minute, whatever, drop down as well. They have an email-based trigger where they generate a unique email address for you. And if you send an email to that email address, it will run that particular trigger. And then there's app-based ones. So this is the built-in stuff. So for example, I have a workflow that says when a new file is added to a particular Dropbox folder, run my workflow. And they have that stuff baked in. And what's really cool is that they have a API that like allows you to write whatever you want. And when I say whatever you want, I had this crazy idea for a while and I've not written it, but their service supports it. You could literally build a trigger on the full moon. So I want something to happen when a full moon happens. So I am building a dating site for werewolves and I need to know when a full moon happens. So I can build that trigger and then anyone can use that particular trigger to build their own workflow. So my workflow is I want to send an email to all my werewolf dating people so that they know it's a full moon. I want to send an SMS message, you know, whatever crazy, super weird logic I have, that can be a trigger that workflows can use to do, you know, whatever when that particular event happens. So we are going to build a workflow. And this is the Pipedream UI. I have already logged on. I'm going to click New. And it has a lot baked into it. You can see, you know, some of the apps here, Twitter, Zoom, and stuff like that. I'm going to keep it simple and say based on an HTTP URL. You see, it gives me a unique URL. If I copy this and run it, it probably won't work until I save it. Oh, no, it works already. But this is essentially the first step for this particular event. So if I add something to it, like some Node.js code, I could then actually write a response to this. Now, you do not want to see me type code, so I'm going to copy and paste. And give me 1 second. I knew there was a reason why I wanted to keep this editor up in the background. And I'm just going to copy this. Don't worry about it yet. But see, this particular code step, this is where I would do custom code. It is wrapped in a function that is just kind of there automatically. And I literally just write whatever I want. In this case, I am using a built-in function to say that I want to respond. And I want to say my custom response on Friday night should be wine. Save it, and we'll also just do a console.log because that's how I roll. I roll with console. So I can save it. I can deploy it. I could also give this a name. I'll call this test 1. And then I can actually go back over here and just reload. And I could see my response. And even better, if I go back here, I can actually see the request. Now, for an HTTP one, when you test it in the browser, don't forget that your browser will always try to load a fave icon. And I could actually see this. So I can click to load that particular invocation and scroll up, and I could actually see it was trying to hit fave icon. This was a real request, and I could see everything from the headers. I could see the code. I could see my console message. And basically, every workflow will give you this history of past events. So this is really useful for when like something goes wrong. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to break something. I'm going to say, you know, that's bad code, and go back here and run it again, and I should get an error. And it did right there. So I could actually see the error that came in and get really good information on there. So again, real handy. I mean, you know, it takes a lot to get me away from Visual Studio Code, but they did a really good job on their editor. And one of the things that I found is that they are doing so much of the work for me. A lot of my custom code will be 5 to 10 lines of stuff like this, where I'm basically going to take something and modify the data, you know, just a little bit. Yes.
There, hit the bell for you. So I don't know if I missed it or not. So this custom JavaScript that you're adding here, are there limitations to this JavaScript? Do you have the full scope of any npm package, or the full node, or what are the tricks?
So if I go in here and say like const fetch equals require
Yeah.
node fetch, if I type it right, tch, guess what? It works. Done.
What if I
They
wanted to
have,
use Axios?
it works.
It
In fact,
works.
I think they actually have like even their own Axios in there even quicker. I don't use Axios, but
Sure.
you can definitely use Axios.
But so common libraries are probably already baked in. Then you're saying,
Everything,
all right, sweet,
everything. Yeah, it just works. No package.json. I just have it there.
nice.
So let's talk a bit more about steps. So as I said, Pipedream has their own things that are kind of rebuilt that you could just drop in, or you could do custom steps like you saw there when I was doing a response. They can be named, and typically I recommend that you name them, especially if you start building a workflow that gets a bit long. It's good to have a name so you know what's going on. It's like properly naming functions. It also impacts the variables that a step creates. So if a step has a good name, it makes it a bit easier to use that in code. All steps can have parameters, and I'll show an example of that. Steps can access the results of other steps. So if on step 5, I know that earlier I did something, I can look at that result and work with that data. Now it's a read-only access, but I can read essentially everything that happened before. And you also get access to process.env. And in the Pipedream settings for your account, you could set up secret keys and things like that. That makes it easier to share your workflow because you don't have those keys embedded. All right, so I'm going to show an example of that. And what I'm going to do is a couple of things. So I've already showed renaming the workflow, but I'm going to rename this step. I'm going to call it return data. I did not think a lot about that name, but that is what it's doing. I'm going to add one more code step in the middle here. And by the way, you can move steps up and down. The trigger is always the first, but this little down arrow here would allow me to shift this down. This one could be shifted up, and obviously if I shift it up, it could be shifted down. I'm going to call this check query string. And all I'm going to do is say let QS, and I'm going to cheat a little bit and look at my earlier code. Let QS equals, and I'm going to access the data from the earlier step. In this case, it's a trigger. And I'm not sure if you saw it, but there was code complete for everything I did there, which makes it a lot easier to not screw up. But basically, I'm going to make a copy of the query string. And if I look at one of the past invocations, not that one, but I could see I have a query object, and it's blank because I never actually sent anything all along the query string. So I'm going to go back to my code. And basically, I am going to say, if I don't pass a name value, then I'm going to say name equals bozo. And I'm going to modify, and then I'm going to actually say, I'll show you a trick here. I'm going to set that to this variable, and I'll explain why in a second. All right, so I've made this new step, and it's doing something very small. It's basically looking at the query string. If a value is not there, it's just setting a particular value. Because I use this scope, I have QS available from this step later on in my code. So I can say here, hello, and then actually access steps dot check query string and QS name. And again, look at all that autocomplete. Pipedream was able to see that, but I mentioned giving a step a name, and this is one reason why you would do that, to make it look a little bit nicer in code. So all that after I deploy should allow me to go back to my URL, reload, and I should say hello bozo. And if I say name equals Ray, I'll see hello Ray. Now that's one way a step can return data. I could also, if I switch back to the local scope here with the let variable, if I return QS, then the only thing that changes is that instead of that, it is return value dot, what did I call it? Return QS name. So basically, there's two different ways that steps can return data. If I use the this scope, I can set any number of values in that step that I can access later, or I could choose to return something. So Pipedream is very flexible. It gives you multiple ways to kind of solve the same problem. I actually prefer returning a value because I feel it's a bit more formal in terms of my step is done and this is what I'm outputting, versus having multiple this scope variables in a step. But again, Pipedream will let you build it the way that you think makes sense. The one thing to keep in mind is that when you do return, the way that you access that value is going to change in your step. And I could test this, deploy, and Nick, and hopefully it still works. I didn't break it. Yes, all right, I didn't break it. So that was code in steps. I get it a little bit more, interesting. Talk a bit more about some of the pre-built stuff that Pipedream has. And they have quite a bit. It's not really 2 billion, but they have a lot. And what's nice is that you can actually author these and reuse them in your code. So essentially, if I did something in a workflow that I felt was really useful, it kind of made sense, it was easy to use, I could take that and repackage that and then reuse it again. In fact, they made this even easier literally like 2 days ago, where they released support for building from the CLI. So I was able to build my own action that I could share, use the CLI to deploy, and then test it on Pipedream. And again, like as of 2 days ago, they added that feature, and it works really, really well.
Where'd this 2 billion number come from? That seems like a lot for anything, any service or software.
It's not 2 billion, but there's a heck of a lot there baked in. And they have a place to request, like, hey, you don't have support for so and so. Like for example, they had support for Dropbox for a while, and I requested that they add support for OneDrive. And that was just me saying, please, essentially. And they did do it. So there is better support for OneDrive now. So yeah, they don't support everything under the sun, but they have a lot baked in. And I will be showing a list of that somewhat later.
Got it.
So I want to show like a real demo, and not just a simple HTTP endpoint, something that I would actually possibly use in production. And the idea is I want to hit a RSS feed and get the entries from that, and I want to search for a particular term in those entries. And if there's any results from that, I want to send a mail. So I am going to build a new workflow. So we'll go back to workflows, we'll do new, and just so you know, I am going to my copy in a different window, so I'm not typing randomly. So I mentioned that this rule application is going to check every now and then. So I'm going to do a schedule-based trigger. Notice it defaults to off, which is awesome because you don't want it running while you're building, and it makes it easy to test. And I mentioned they support the full cron syntax if you know it, or the much simpler every X hour, day, or minute. But for now, I'm going to keep it off. So first thing I want to do is hit an RSS feed. So I am going to add a code set. And someone had asked earlier about using any random NPM package. I'm doing that right now by requesting RSS parser, and that's just going to work. And this is a NPM library I've used a lot, so I know it by heart, and I'm totally lying. I'm looking to my right at the pre-built one. Parse URL, and I'm just going to copy and paste my blog. Now, one thing I want to point out, I'm going to build a couple different code steps here. I could do everything in one code step, but I tend to build my Pipedream workflows like I write JavaScript functions. So every step will do just one particular thing to make sure I haven't screwed anything up. So in this case, my step is only going to get the items from that particular RSS feed. So I'm going to deploy it, and I'm going to run it now. And what's cool is that I can see it's working. I can look at the results, and I see, yeah, it parsed the RSS feed. It got the items back. So I know, so far it's working okay. All right, so I'm actually going to rename this to get items because it's actually getting all the RSS. So my next one is going to be where I'm going to filter. So I'm going to say my search term, I'm hard coding it for now. We're going to make that a bit nicer in a minute. My search term is going to be Jamstack. And then I'm going to do a filter on those items. And I'm going to copy and paste this. But basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at the result of get items, which was right up here. That had a items value, which was an array of my RSS things. And I'm going to filter based on where the content contains my particular search term. So the end result of this particular step will be some subset of this particular data. So essentially, as my workload goes down, I'm like filtering and constraining and getting less and less data. And then I'm going to do one more thing. So I know Pipedream has support for sending mail. In fact, if I go in here and I add it, I see send yourself a mail. And it has support for specifying the subject and specifying the text. What I don't have now is the text to send email. So I'm going to go in here and just add one more code step. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste so you're not watching me type. And I'm going to do a couple things here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my last step, which I called find items. And if nothing was returned, because my filter found nothing that matched my search term, Pipedream code has a built-in function called end that will end the workflow. I could specify a message, which is useful. So when I look over here, I can see that nothing was matched, and I'll get kind of feedback about why my workflow ended. All I'm doing here now is basically just formatting a text string for items that matched from my RSS feed. And at the very end, I return that, and let's give this a nice name of, what should I call it? I will call it make email. So now I can go into steps.emailme, and I'm going to say my subject will be match some items from RSS. And what's cool here is that I can actually use some of the earlier data. So in this case, I'm going to look at steps, make email, return value, and select path. And the editor actually inserts that code for me. Now, if I knew about the bracket syntax, I could do it. But literally, that's it. And I could test this again. And we should see it do stuff. So again, it is throwing an error. And I threw an error on purpose so I could see where it did it. And it was right here. Can't find return value of undefined. So I possibly, I'm not going to spend too much time debugging here because that's very boring. Oh, yeah, I did not name this. Find items. All right, so I'll deploy it again and run it again. And this time it's going to work perfectly. If not, I'll just use the copy that I'm working with that I know has been debugged. And it actually did. So I can see all the steps. So this was the initial get all the items, got the 10 items from my RSS feed. It filtered down to 3 that matched the search term. It generated a body, and I can see all this on my workflow. And this is the last execution. So again, very handy for debugging. And then that last step, that was all Pipedream code. So they have that step that will send email to the account owner, which is what happened here. And what that looks like, yes.
So again, maybe I missed it. So earlier, I think in the pricing for the free tier, it said you said 10,000. I don't know if that was invocations or not. When this workflow that you just created, if that were to run, does that count as 1 or does that count as like 4 or 5 because that's how many steps you have?
No, it's only as 1.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So where I said to watch out, and I'm happy you asked that. So I play around a lot, right? So I know at one time I built something where I did, let's do it every minute. And there's a surprising number of minutes in a day. Did you know that, Nick?
What is it? 3,600? Is that?
Yeah. There's a lot. So,
yeah.
I think it was either 10,000 or 100,000 free implications. You can screw that up. I wasn't going to show it until later, but I'll show it now. So this is the SAC screen from my account, and the only reason I'm doing the only reason I'm doing a screenshot is that it literally reset today, so it got less interesting. But
69,000.
Yeah. But what's nice is that they give you a list of your workflows and which ones are running the most. So this particular tweet bot, it actually checks for mentions, so it runs a lot. So this number makes sense. So this is really handy for like if you see something weird, like I bet I screwed my cron up. So my live account right here, go into deploy. I'm not sure what I changed, but that's fine. No, God, no, off. Yeah, I got that. All right, go into settings.
So I guess that goes back to my earlier question. Since you've got 69,000, I'm assuming that you have your credit card information down. Can you make it stop billing you if you accidentally go haywire or off the rails?
I don't know about that. So I have a upgraded plan that they gave to me as a friend of Pipedream. I've blogged about them a lot.
You and your friendly discounts.
Yes, yeah. So
for basically every vendor.
At the same time, I try very hard not to abuse that. So I do check. But like this is the account that I've just done, and if I click yesterday, I can see basically my test workflows and go in there.
Got it.
So and this is the example, and I could have made this email better. This was me just doing the least amount of work to get something up and running for a demo. And by the way, that particular action of sending the account owner an email, you can actually do that programmatically by one more baked-in object, the $send.email, and I could do that instead if I didn't want their pre-built code. So I'm just sharing that as just FYI. It's kind of nice. But I do want to make this a little bit nicer. One of the things I want to do is help make this more reusable. So if we look at my code, let me go back to my workflow. I don't think I had named it. Excuse me. My RSS feed is baked in. My search is baked in. We can make that a little bit nicer. And we can also demonstrate a problem that we're going to fix. So I'm going to modify. And again, let me get my nicer code up and running. I'm going to modify it by switching to params. So every code can work with parameters. And the way you would do that is literally come in here. I'm going to erase this. And instead of a hard-coded string, I'm going to say params.feed URL. And as soon as I do that, the editor picks up, you have a parameter. And now I can supply that in there. And now what's cool is that if I share this workflow with you, you don't have to worry about, okay, where in the code did Ray specify the particular parameter URL? The UI actually floats that up and makes it super easy to modify. I'm going to do the same thing for the search term. And I'm going to say, instead of search, I'm going to say params.search and get rid of this statement and just say Jamstack. And that is really the only thing I'm going to do, but I'm going to run it again. And in theory, we should get the same results, so about 3 items. So this is better, and it's already more shareable. But we do have a problem where if I run this again, let's say I run this every hour, it's going to keep finding the same 3 items. I'm going to get an email every single time. In fact, in my inbox, I have a couple of emails now. So that's a problem. So how do we fix that? We need some way to kind of recognize that, hey, I've already run and I don't need to run that again. So Pipedream has a persistent system built into it. It's called Checkpoint, and it's available via $ checkpoint. This could be any JSON serializable object or a simple value. And it's either workflow level or at the step level. And basically, once you read or write to this, Pipedream handles persisting this forever, essentially. And it also gives you a UI to modify and work with it. Now I'm going to show you this example. Basically, what we're going to do is remember the date of the last blog entry. And because we're going to have that, we'll be able to say, hey, filter out things that happened before that. And then at the end of my workflow, I'm then going to update that particular checkpoint value to that value. So I am going to find that real quick. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do is, because I feel like I'm going a little bit long on time here, I'm going to show you the baked one.
You can take your time. It doesn't matter. It's all good. We've got plenty of people tuning in and enjoying it.
All right. Well, but this one, I'll show the baked one. It'll save me from from screwing up. So it starts off the same. So I'm just iterating on the same workflow, right? So first step, get items. And then the next step is going to check for checkpoints, see if it exists. And again, I don't have to create this. Every workflow has this baked in. In my workflow, I know if it does exist, it's going to be a date string. So I'll just use a bit of JavaScript to set that. And at this point, I filter out to things that are before that last time that I ran this particular post. So this step is new. Basically, filter out things I've seen before. I then immediately update the checkpoint. And again, like all this JavaScript code, this could be all one particular step. But I love having these small, unique steps because it makes it so much easier to modify and update later on. So I update the checkpoint. I then say, hey, if I have nothing left anymore, I'm going to end because I filtered out because of no new items. And in fact, that message could be a bit clearer. You know what? Screw it. Let's fix it. Not know why, but not no new items. Deploy. Now it's going to filter out by my keyword. And though this end message is good, I could even say no matched item. Y'all are seeing me update live. And now this workflow is a lot better. This could run every hour and it won't keep sending me an email. In fact, if I run this now, it should find nothing because I have not blogged in the last couple of days. So it should say, yep, right there, no new items. And if I go into the settings for this, I should be able to see the checkpoint value. So in this case, I used a simple value. I could have used an object and stored, multiple different things in there. But this is incredibly useful. Like I've done serverless stuff where it's like, man, I wish I just had a way to persist a couple simple values. And I've only seen a couple of serverless frameworks make this easy. And I love the way Pipedream does it. All right, so this is the last iteration. I promise I won't be doing any more. What if there was a way to make this even nicer? So, my last version fixed the problem where, it wasn't going to keep finding the same data, but it's still going to run every hour. It's still going to execute the entire workflow. So what I really want to do is like kill the schedule. And let me show you that. Let me get back to my workflows, and this is what I've been working on. So I'm going to kill this schedule, this cron-based schedule, and it's going to allow that, but it's really going to want me to do it. And actually, Pipedream has a RSS trigger where literally I paste in my feed like so and save it, and it's going to run its own schedule. And here's what it does. It's working. Let me let it finish working. All right. So in case that went too quick, this one particular step has all of the logic of look at an RS feed, remember what was there last time. And if a new feed item appears, then actually go through the rest of the checkpoint. So I can literally get rid of a bunch of code. And let me actually go to my complete version so I don't screw it up while I'm talking about it. But for example, I no longer need to get my items because literally this trigger, when it finds a new RSS feed item, it's going to give my workflow, hey, here's your new blog post. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now I do have to, modify my code a little bit. I'm no longer working with an array of items. I'm now working with an event-based workflow that essentially has that new blog post or that new RSS item there. So instead of an array, it's one. So basically, I'm looking at the trigger event data, and I'm looking at the description in this case, looking against a parameter. This is basically the same logic, but working with one RSS item only. My email is going to be a little bit different as well, because now it's only going to be matching against one. And also, guess what? I don't have to worry about did I find any items, because, yeah, sorry, that was a bit off screen. So my workflow now actually ends immediately if the one item didn't match. So that makes this particular step even easier. So let me get rid of that and just put this in. And then my last step doesn't change at all because it's still taking the result, the last item, and working. So I hope that kind of made sense because I have now offloaded more work to Pipedream. That whole logic of parsing the RSS, hey, is this a new item? All that's gone. Now that's all handled by Pipedream. And if I wanted to do something else, like if I wanted to send an SMS message, I would literally go up in here and click copy this workflow and have a new workflow that could do SMS. Or I could add it as just one more thing here to do that. Hey, after you email me, also I want you to send an SMS message, maybe send a tweet, do whatever I want. I could just keep iterating and keep adding. And again, I freaking love Pipedream, if you can't tell by how much I'm gushing about it. So talking a bit more about some more features that are in there. I mentioned how it made authentication a bit easier. Anything that needs authentication, Twitter, Google, etc., Pipedream makes this easier. It does this by having you log into a service, and this will be available to your entire account amongst different workflows. Your code can also access that all. So as you know, part of the authentication process, you get your token value. If you need code access to that, your Node.js steps can do that. I am going to build a Twitter search workflow just to kind of show you how easy this is. So I'm going to go back to workflows. I'm going to make a new one, and it is going to be Twitter based. And it is going to be emit when new tweets match your search criteria. So if you ever wanted to like monitor Twitter for a search term, because Twitter is full of awesomeness, this is how you would start that. So you can see right away, it's asking me to select an account. I have logged in before, so it has that Raymond Camden account. But if not, I could literally click here. It would give me a pop-open window. I would enter my credentials and hit save, and then I'd be able to use it. But because I've already logged in, I'll just pick Raymond Camden, and literally I'm done. So I'm going to enter a search term. Now, this is Twitter, y'all. So I'm going to try to pick something innocent, but this is the internet. So I'm hoping that this will be nice and safe. I'll do kitten, and I could do things. I specify what kind of search. I want recent. I don't want retweets. I don't want replies. Don't care about language, locale, geocodes,
I
etc.
feel like that search term might not be safe.
God, what is
the internet is awful.
Cats? We'll just do cats, and that's got to be safe.
Maybe.
And then I will create this cat. I will Twitter source. This is going to be safe, Nick. I'm going to trust the internet on Friday night. So literally all I did was build a new thing that will trigger when somebody tweets about cats. And now notice that this is turned off by default. This is like, I like the cron thing. It's a safety measure to not start firing crap while you're developing. So I'm going to leave this off while I'm showing y'all what I'm doing. But you would obviously want to turn this on before we deploy. So I can send a test event just to see it working, and it shows me what kind of data I would get. Because this is a Twitter-based event source, I get a tweet, and tweets are actually pretty darn complex. So I can look at all this stuff. I can see the source, etc. So what I want to do is actually run some Node.js code, because this is going to fire when somebody tweets about cats. And so I want to send email. And again, I just need to do a bit of formatting. So I'm creating a body variable. I'm formatting it. I know what my trigger returns, because Pipedream gave me all this data to look at. And I'm basically saying, oh, it's from this particular user. Here's a link to their tweet. And here's the actual text. And then once again, send myself an email, new cats tweet, and I am going to let Pipedream do the work for me. And I forgot to name it. That's why it's named Node.js. But if I gave that a better name, that'd be nicer. And literally, I have a Twitter application done. Now, I like building Twitter apps, but they don't necessarily make it easy. You have to apply for the developer program. That can take a couple days or 15 minutes. This depends on how lucky you are. You have to get your credential values. Then you have to make those credentials available to Node.js code. I did none of that. I mean, I used my existing Twitter account to log on, but all that logic is just literally done. And we can actually see a real result here, although it's kind of probably hard to see over the screen. But it says, okay, is 4 cats too much? Because blah, blah, blah. Yeah, 4 cats is not too much. But literally now, if I needed a service to monitor Twitter, I'm done. And I built that in 5 minutes. A perhaps more real-world example of this would be there's various services that do emotional intelligence based on text. IBM has one, Microsoft has one. I could literally take tweets as they come in, look for anger, and then when I see angry tweets, flag them. So I can monitor my products, for example, and if people are angry about my products, I can get a warning that, hey, someone's mad about my products. I should go investigate, see if they need help on something. And literally, like, that service is baked and done in a few minutes. Yes.
We've got a question coming in.
Cool.
So does this work with WhatsApp?
I have no idea. Let's find out. Let's add a step. I'll go to the end here. And WhatsApp. Looks like chats API for, if we're kind of zoomed in here. Yeah, I guess that is yes. Now,
Very cool.
I haven't used it. I can't comment on it, but it looks like it does.
Sweet.
It is very sweet. I freaking love this. So if you make an error, you can either don't make errors, but they still happen. And when an error happens, guess what? Pipedream will run another workflow that is user specific. You literally have, when you go to your workflows, guess what? You have a workflow that you can work with and modify that will change how errors are handled. So this is what happens normally. You get an email, all right? And they have some logic in here. I'll show this in a minute. The one thing I'll point out is that they do send this cryptic ID. They do not send the name of their workflow. So I feel like I've been gushing about Pipedream. I feel like I'm always loving on them. I will say this is an old bug I wish they would fix because it's silly, because workflows do have names and no one's going to memorize IDs. But because you can edit, if I actually go into my main account and go into my error workflow, they have some logic here to do things like, hey, if workflow X did error Y in the last day, don't send another email, like don't flood the user. So they have all that crap in there. That's all good stuff. But what I did is I went into their code and I basically added a hack, essentially. So if it's this ID, it's SuperJoyCat and blah, blah, blah. And that makes it a bit nicer for me. And if I wanted to, I could modify it even more as well. And I could even do things like send me a text message instead of just an email. So it's really cool that Pipedream exposes this to you. So I did that. Some miscellaneous stuff, they have S3 support. So for example, if you want to send a file to S3, it's very difficult. You have to do 4 lines of code there. So they make that a little bit easy for you. They have a SQL service built in. To be clear, this is not like MongoDB. This is not SQL Server. This is a lightweight SQL system that allows you to basically send objects to a table and then run queries against it. Again, and I should say it's an append-only system. You can't delete data from it. So don't think full database, think a nicer logging system. Because once you have it, you can send events and you could do queries against it to look at that data. Obviously, you have actions that work with things like Fauna. I used Fauna about 3 hours ago in a Pipedream workflow, and it worked perfectly well. So you can use a quote unquote real database. You can use MongoDB. In fact, for Nick, I'll just randomly go in here and go Mongo.
And we have a question coming in too.
Yeah, all right. Yep, I will stop. Yes?
I think Raul's trying to answer it too, but we have a user asking, I'm wondering how to interface Pipedream with the desktop app in C#. Can I send some API REST request or something?
Yeah, so that first workflow I built way down here, there, right there, URL.
Sweet.
Yep. So the answer is yes. There is a CLI. So you don't have a full local dev environment to build the complete workflow. That's not here yet. You can author event sources. So if I wanted to build that full moon event source, I could use Visual Studio Code. I could use the CLI. And again, as of 2 days ago, they made support for building actions. I actually wrote a action that lets you pass an array of RSS feeds, and it will call all of those RSS feeds in parallel, get the items back, and sort them by date. So if you've ever seen a RSS feed aggregator that will hit multiple feeds and give you like a nice little newsletter list of those items, I built an action that does that for you. So you plug in my action, you give it the list of feeds, and the output is your date sorted list of actions. So I did that, and I even submitted a PR to Pipedream for them to include it in their catalog. They also have a REST API for working with Pipedream itself. So as a user admin, if you want to do admin type stuff outside of their UI, they have a REST-based API. I've never used it. I assume it works. And also, I mentioned a few minutes ago about how they have checkpoint, which is a nice handy way. Like I got to persist something small, right? Not a gigabyte of data. I have a small amount of data I want to persist. Pipedream also solved the issue of, I want to include a binary file with my workflow, but I don't want to use S3, right? I don't want to copy it from S3 and get it local. I want a file attached to my workflow. Well, now all of your workflows can have attachments. You can literally go into the settings and drop the file in there, and then your workflow can use it via the attachments object. So what's cool about this, Adobe has a document generation API where we take a Microsoft Word template that you make that has tokens in it. We take your live data and we generate a PDF from that. So because our API requires a Microsoft Word template, in Pipedream, I could literally just include that Word document in my workflow, call our APIs, and run logic all via Pipedream. Because they did that, they thought about, hey, this is a common request. Let's make this a little bit easier for them. And I freaking love that they thought that far ahead. Some more miscellaneous usage. I showed that a bit earlier, again, with that photo. And it's really nice to be able to see when things are going a bit crazy. You can look at that workflow, turn it off, or do whatever you need to. They obviously have docs, pipedream.com/docs. They have a Slack. They are very responsive on Slack. They're so responsive, I began to feel guilty because I would ask for something, I get an answer in like 5 minutes. So now I make sure I preface everything. Like, hey guys, hey y'all, I'm building a really dumb cat demo, so don't rush, but here's my problem. And I still typically get really darn good help from them. So their support in general is outstanding. And they're really going above and beyond to provide that. They also have a discourse and a GitHub discussion forums. I know a lot of people don't prefer Slack, especially for support, because you feel like if you don't monitor it, then you lose out. So you have a discourse option as well. So I mentioned that there were billions of apps. I won't say a billion, but I will slowly scroll through. Oh, they have Algolia. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. They have quite a few. We're on the F's now, G's. I've used a Google Calendar. I've used Google Sheets. They all work super, super well. Oh, look, here Technologies is there. IBM Cloud, and there's lots and lots and lots. And obviously, if it's not on here, you can just write your own Node.js stuff to do whatever you want. So that was a lot of talking. I am done. Great.
You're getting a lot of compliments in the chat.
Thank you.
So it's a good thing. So we'll let the questions come in as we wait for them to come in. I want to go over maybe some logistics for the next meetup, and then we'll circle back. Is that all right with you, Ray?
That's absolutely fine.
All right, let me share my screen. Hold on. You don't have to stop sharing yours.
Oh, okay.
I'll just take priority over here. There we go.
There you go.
All right, so this is the Tracy Developer Meetup that you're currently watching. So this is the Tracy Developer Meetup website. It's tracydevs.com. And what I'll do is I'll throw up a little banner here right there while I talk about it. So you're currently watching Ray's Serverless Workflows in Pipedream presentation. We have a meeting once per month. They are remote for the time being. That will probably change towards the end of the year or early next year, at least. But even when they start becoming in person, I'm going to try to get them recorded and thrown up on YouTube for on demand as well. Next month, we have a Flutter presentation. So if you've never heard of Flutter before, it's for building mobile apps. I think they do desktop apps now too, kind of, but I'm not sure. We're going to learn about that. So tune in June for this very exciting presentation. If you have something that you want to see at the group, or maybe even better, maybe you want to present something to the group. You don't need to be in Tracy to present. We'll figure something out. But it's a very mellow, very low key group. It's a great way to start presenting if maybe you're new to it. It kind of gets your foot in the door, and by doing so, you build up your own personal portfolio. So it'll help you in the long run for finding jobs and all kinds of other good stuff. Let's circle back to the chat if there's anything coming in. We have a yo from Ronan.
Yo.
But, it doesn't look like any questions are coming in yet, but that's all right. I'll switch back to your screen because I don't need to share mine anymore. Actually,
Well,
let's just.
If I'm on my
plug something.
If I'm on my screen, this is an example of one of our APIs where I can drop a PDF in Dropbox, and you can see this is the Dropbox step here. It's a trigger, and basically it will fire every time I drop a file in a particular folder. And I wrote some code using our particular Node SDK for working with their document services. And basically, I get the file from Dropbox. I use environment variables for my credentials. I call our SDK, and I add a password. Where's the password? Iron Man sucks. It's cool. And when it's done, it uses another pre-built Pipedream thing to protect it. So I could literally, I don't use Dropbox except for demos. But I can go in PDF test and go into my desktop. And I have a cat PDF because of course I do. And I could drop it in here. And so literally right now, Pipedream got a notice. Oh, hey, there's a new file in this folder. It's grabbing, if we can go back here, right there you can see it's running. It's calling the Adobe Document Services APIs. It's adding the password. And if I go back to PDF test process, I have a password protected PDF. So if I download that and open it, it's done. So Iron Man sucks. Open the file. And there it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this was about 10 minutes of work, all of which was basically, most of it was me making the 5 environment variables. The rest was just copy and paste code that was already done pretty much.
Yeah, that's great. Well done.
I'm gonna take full credit for Pipedream. It's all me. No, I mentioned their support has been amazing. I just can't thank them enough. And like they know I'm building stupid crap with their service. They know I'm not paying any money, but they still honor me by hearing me out and responding to my bug requests and just being very nice about it. So hey, if you're building a service out there, treat your developers nice because they will be unpaid evangelists for you essentially.
Right on. All right, we're still accepting questions for a little while. We have Red Smith saying spectacular, shows the flexibility of Pipedream very well. Very nice. We'll give it a few more minutes maybe. I saw you're doing a Marvel bot at the beginning, right? What comic books are you reading right now?
All the Star Wars ones, although I am like 3 months behind. I have a pile in the living room for me to catch up on.
Are you on the Marvel subscription service?
No. I go to a shop in town and pick it up. And that and G.I. Joe, but I don't buy Real American Hero. I get the IDW comics when they come out.
Got it. I've been following the King of Black Marvel comics with Venom. That's been my thing lately.
Is it good?
I like it. I'm not huge on comic books, but they're
Yeah.
not bad. I'd like them to. They'll probably end up doing a movie at some point in time about it.
Well, we watched the original Venom movie like a couple of nights ago, and I had seen it before, but I
A good
forgot.
movie.
Yeah, I'm really surprised at how well they did
It
that.
it got bad reviews too, but I loved that one.
Yeah.
Then Carnage is coming out soon. I'm looking forward to that too.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I think if there's nothing else trickling in, I'll stop sharing your screen here.
Thank you.
And you want to plug anything before we call it?
Yeah. Have you killed my screen yet?
I did kill your screen. Do you want me to put it back?
Yeah. Just real quick, I will plug my
All
work.
right.
uh, Document services, Adobe IO. You can find us. Again, we have APIs. We're working with PDFs. If you're doing anything with documents, generating, signing, whatever, we have very cool APIs. Reach out to me. I will be happy to help you learn more. That's my entire pitch. I'm done. You can stop sharing my screen
Awesome.
now.
Awesome. You have Red Smith chiming in here saying, I'm interested mainly in desktop apps integrations with web services like Pipedream. The Dropbox example was interesting to have a desktop folder encode files and upload to Dropbox.
Mhm.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, all right, everyone. I know it's late for Ray. It's not so late for me. It's still sunny outside.
Yeah.
So we'll call it, and we'll see everyone in June. I hope everyone shows up. Adios.
Bye.